Could gravity, the force we feel every single day, the thing keeping us grounded, actually something else entirely?
It sounds pretty wild, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, could it be the universe just tidying up,
Yeah.
organizing its data, like some kind of cosmic hard drive cleaner?
Well, that's the fascinating direction some thinking in physics and quantum mechanics is heading. It's this idea that gravity might not be fundamental like we've always assumed, but instead it could be an emergent thing, something that arises from information itself and how reality is structured.
Right. So something we experience so directly might just be a side effect of the universe, like managing its files.
Exactly. It's a pretty radical
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're digging into this idea, looking at insights from sources like the Quantum Wisdom YouTube channel transcript.
Yeah, the goal is really to try and grasp the core arguments here, this concept of gravity as data management, especially within these frameworks that suggest the universe might be, holographic, or maybe even a simulation.
It definitely bends your mind a bit. So let's get into it. Where do we start with gravity as data management?
I think the best starting point is the holographic principle. It really sets the stage for thinking about reality in terms of information.
Okay, the holographic principle. I know names like Leonard Susskind and Juan Maldacena are key here. What's the basic idea?
The basic idea, and it's a big one, is that our familiar three-dimensional universe, well, it might just be a projection.
A projection? Like a movie?
Sort of, yeah. Like all the information that describes our 3D reality is actually encoded on a distant two-dimensional surface, like a cosmic hologram.
Wow. So the depth, the third dimension we perceive, it's all stored on a flat boundary somewhere.
That's the core concept. It kind of flips our intuition about space on its head. It suggests that information scales with surface area, not volume.
Okay. So if reality is fundamentally information projected like that, how does gravity fit in?
Well, that's the connection. If information is the bedrock, then maybe gravity isn't a force in the classic sense pulling objects together. Maybe it's a consequence of how the universe processes all that information, how it keeps it organized, consistent, like the operating system, making sure all the holographic data makes sense.
I remember the transcript mentioning black holes in this context, how information falling in can be described just by what's on the surface, the event horizon.
Exactly. That was a huge clue. It showed how complex 3D information could, in principle, be encoded onto a 2D boundary. It really gave the holographic idea some teeth.
Okay, so information is key, which leads us to, what's the next piece?
That brings us nicely to entropic gravity. This is another perspective, but it really complements the information-based view.
Entropic gravity, Eric Berlinda's idea, right? What's the link between gravity and, entropy? Isn't entropy about disorder?
It is, yeah. Entropy is that tendency for systems to become more disordered, more random over time. It's a fundamental law, the second law of thermodynamics.
Right. Messy desks and all that.
Hey, exactly. Verlin's proposal is that gravity isn't a fundamental pull, but it emerges from this very tendency. It's a consequence of information flow and the universe trying to maximize its overall entropy.
So, wait, how does gravity come from maximizing disorder? That sounds backwards.
It seems counterintuitive, I know. But think of it like this. When you have concentrations of matter or information, it creates sort of information gradient.
Okay.
The universe, seeking the most probable highest entropy state, essentially pushes things around to smooth out these gradients. What we perceive as the pull of gravity is actually the statistical tendency of the system to move towards a more uniform distribution of information, a higher entropy configuration.
So it's not an active pull by the mass, but more like the universe naturally rearranging itself towards statistical likelihood. And gravity is just how we see that happening.
That's the essence of it. The universe is just doing what statistically comes naturally based on its information content.
Okay, that's a lot to chew on. So if gravity is this ongoing information shuffling process, what does that make black holes? You mentioned them earlier.
Right. They become even more fascinating in this picture, not just cosmic vacuum cleaners, but maybe more like ultimate cosmic recycling centers or data processors.
Data processors. How so?
Well, we already touched on how information falling into a black hole gets encoded on its 2D event horizon. It's stored there incredibly densely. And then there's Hawking radiation. The idea that black holes aren't entirely black, they slowly evaporate over immense time scales.
Or release energy, right?
Energy, yes, but crucially, information too. It's scrambled maybe, but the information that went in eventually gets radiated back out into the universe.
So black holes take in data, compress it onto their surface, and eventually release it, kind of refined.
You could almost think of them as the universe's ultimate data compression tools, archiving vast amounts of information very efficiently before eventually re-releasing it into the cosmic data stream.
Wow. Okay. This whole information processing idea is really compelling. What about the big unknowns, like dark matter and dark energy? How could they possibly fit into this cosmic hard drive analysis?
Yeah, the transcript we looked at definitely ventured into speculative territory there, but it's intriguing. If gravity is sort of cosmic housekeeping,
Then dark matter and dark energy are the cleaners. Or the weird files.
sort of. One idea floated is that dark matter, the stuff that has gravity but doesn't seem to interact with light. Maybe it's like leftover data.
Leftover from what?
Maybe residual information from the Big Bang, like
Well-
junk data that still has mass, still contributes to the overall information landscape and thus gravity, but doesn't participate in other ways. Background noise, almost.
Okay. And dark energy, the thing speeding up the universe's expansion.
That one's even stranger, but the analogy in the transcript was something like an expansion protocol.
Like making more room on the hard drive.
Potentially. A mechanism to prevent information density from getting too high, to stop the whole cosmic system from crashing due to overload as it evolves. It's highly speculative, of course.
Of course. But it's a way to frame these mysteries within this information-centric view. They become part of the cosmic housekeeping team, perhaps.
Exactly. Aspects of how the universe manages its own complex data load.
And you can't talk about reality as information processing without eventually getting to the simulation hypothesis.
It's almost inevitable, isn't it? The idea pushed by thinkers like Nick Bostrom and even mentioned by people like Elon Musk that our entire reality could be a simulation.
Right. A highly advanced computer program.
Yeah.
So if that were the case, where would gravity fit in?
Well, in that scenario, gravity wouldn't need to be a deep, fundamental force of nature in the way we think.
It could just be code.
Pretty much. A set of algorithms running in the simulation's background. Code designed to maintain order, structure, to make the simulated physics work consistently. Like a defragmentation process running constantly to keep the simulation stable.
That might explain why gravity seems so much weaker than the other force, like electromagnetism.
It's a possible explanation, yeah. If it's not a fundamental quantum interaction, but more of a macro-level rule, a maintenance subroutine for the simulation, its apparent weakness makes a certain kind of sense. It just needs to be strong enough to structure the simulation.
Okay, this is going deep. If gravity is data organization, whether in a simulation or just a fundamental informational reality, what does that imply about consciousness?
That's perhaps the most profound question, isn't it? If the universe is processing information and gravity is part of that, what are our minds, our thoughts?
Are they just more data, part of the stream?
That's one line of thought. Could consciousness itself be a very complex form of quantum information processing? And does it somehow interact with this larger cosmic information field that gravity helps manage?
The transcript hinted at things like synchronicity, déjà vu. Could those be glitches in the matrix or maybe interactions with this deeper informational layer?
It's way out there, but this perspective could offer unconventional ways to think about those kinds of subjective experience, as if our individual consciousness isn't entirely separate, but taps into or is part of a vast cosmic data stream governed by these underlying principles.
It completely reframes what it means to be us within the cosmos.
It absolutely does.
And there's one more huge implication here, right? The potential to finally connect the two giants of physics, Einstein's general relativity and quantum mechanics.
Yes, this has been the biggest challenge in fundamental physics for decades. General relativity describes gravity beautifully on large scale as the smooth curvature of space.
But quantum mechanics describes the universe at tiny scales as being, well, lumpy. Discrete particles, quantized fields, they just don't seem compatible.
They really don't. They speak different languages. But what if gravity isn't a fundamental force needing its own quantum particle, like the hypothetical graviton?
What if it's emergent?
Exactly. If gravity emerges from the way the universe organizes its quantum information, maybe that's the bridge. Maybe the smooth space-time Einstein described is just the large-scale, averaged-out effect of all this underlying quantum data process.
So the pull of gravity, or the curvature of space-time, is really the macroscopic result of the universe compressing and structuring quantum information.
That's the potential synthesis. Einstein's gravity becomes the visible manifestation of the matrix managing its data flow on cosmic scales, keeping the underlying quantum pixels of reality organized. It could potentially unify these two great theories.
It's an incredibly elegant possibility, actually.
It really is. This whole idea of gravity as cosmic data management, it forces us to rethink everything from the ground up.
So we're left with these huge questions. Is gravity a force, like we learned in school, or is it a function, an algorithm, a consequence of information itself?
Are we maybe living inside some kind of computational system where gravity is just part of the operating code?
Yeah, this dive into the concepts from the quantum wisdom material really shakes things up.
Definitely. And the implications. They could ripple through everything. Our understanding of black holes, dark matter, maybe even consciousness. It potentially offers a pathway to unifying physics.
It suggests the universe isn't just stuff happening. It's fundamentally about information being processed.
Which leads to maybe the ultimate follow-up question.
What kind of information?
Exactly. If the universe is processing information, what is that information about? What does its processing tell us about existence itself?
That is definitely something to ponder long after this conversation ends. A real mind bender to carry with you. Thanks for exploring this with us today.